Cenk Uygur Unleashed. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Saturday edition of the Soapbox. And yes, Cenk Uygur Unleashed. Unleashed indeed. One Mr. Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks wrote an article in The Hill going after one Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. At least there was a video of Nancy Pelosi. There she is. One Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. Now, a few things to note. First, he absolutely torches Nancy Pelosi in this article. But the article is not so much torching Nancy Pelosi in as much as the Democratic establishment that believes that Nancy Pelosi is a lefty or progressive. And you know, it's an odd thing reading this from the perspective of Uygur, because from his perspective, they have an established order. From my perspective, Uygur himself is established order. It's almost like there's no way out of ideology. Anywhere you go is where you are. And in that very particular case, yeah, there's a democratic order of things, but Uygur is part of that. He's not outside of the matrix in that sense. Their organization does what it can to sheepdog people into the Democratic Party to vote for whoever they're going to put up, even though they tick further to the left. Uygur, I think, at least for me, probably did more than anybody else to get across this notion that, look, if these guys are accepting money, they're contorting the politics. I came to politics from the standpoint of historical context. Like, I learned about history first and then ended up in politics from the historical side of things. And from that part, politics made no sense. Made zero sense. I don't understand why people are acting this way. It's only because I had certain preconceived ideas on how politicians are and what people did when they get in Washington. Money contorts the system. It distorts it. It turns it into something else. That argument is, I think, felt on somewhat of a gut level by people in the populace. It's part of the reason half of the population doesn't vote. They say, what's the point? This article nails that in an amazing way. It makes this very strident point over and over again that, look, Nancy Pelosi is not a progressive. Now, I look at this article and I'm like, certainly they don't believe Nancy Pelosi is a progressive. But this is written in The Hill. This is not written in HuffPost. This is written in The Hill. This is going for a very specific audience that is somewhat of a mainstream audience. It's directed and it's aimed. I like the article. I think it works. So I'm just going to read this article because I think this article is awesome. I'm putting it at the bottom. I'm going to go through it rather brisk. But I like it. I like it. It hits a few notes, and I want to talk about a few of the items as we go through it. Why did House Speaker Nancy Pelosi not defend Ilhan Omar by name recently when she was attacked by Donald Trump? Why did Speaker Pelosi attend a dinner with Democratic donors where she discussed how to thwart Senator Sanders, arguably the most progressive person in Congress? Why did Pelosi minimize progressives in Congress by saying there were just 5 of them? I'll solve the big mystery for you. She's not a progressive. Not even close. In fact, she works against every progressive priority in Congress. The only people who still buy into the fiction that she's a progressive are her friends in the Democratic Party and the Washington media. Republicans often run campaign ads featuring Pelosi that sometimes are so effective that Democratic candidates in the race has to denounce her. The mainstream media makes the mistake of thinking this is because the American people find her to be too liberal. In reality, they have a completely different problem with her. They find her to be too elitist. That's why it's so tone deaf of her to answer when asked why she should be House Speaker, that she is the biggest fundraiser in the country. Yes, that's exactly the problem. To regular people, that signals she's working with the elites to rip them off. That's dead on. Like that is absolutely dead on. Like, Republican or Democrat, they have this suspicion, this feeling that if you're taking $1 billion, that you're doing something for that money. that if the only people who are in the room with you are people who are giving you tons of cash, or who you know you're going to get a job with after you get out of office, they feel something is shady there because they're right. They look at the policies that are put forth. Like, you have the public saying, yes, Medicare for all. Not so much, not so much. You're not going to get that. Even if you say we need to expand Social Security, it doesn't matter. When the public was saying we don't want the TPP, Obama was still running around the country saying, I don't care what the public wants, I'm still going to get the TPP. There's a tone deafness in regards to the political apparatus versus what the public wants. Do you know, I forget the name of the test or the study that was done. I think it was Princeton or one of these other universities. But what the public wants changes the political apparatus to the point of statistical noise. What does influence it is cash. Cash. How much money are you going to put up? How much money is floating behind the scenes? During that tax thing, whether Donald Trump gets in office, at first saying, I'm not going to cut my taxes, and then gets in office and passes massive, grotesque tax cut. There were Republicans that were saying, if we don't pass this tax cut, they told us not to call them, meaning donors. Donors were essentially telling these Republicans that during the time of mass income inequality, you need to pass this tax cut. That's atrocious. That's atrocious. That had nothing to do with us. I just want to make that clear. That had nothing to do with us. That wasn't the public needs X. This was our donors want X. There's a difference in those things. There's a difference in those things. Let's keep going. People in Washington might find that to be unfair. Politicians are just listening to the rich, not following their orders. Not following their orders. They're honorable people, not unduly influenced by the money they receive. No one outside of Washington believes this. In fact, 93% of Americans believe that politicians serve their donors over their voters. 93%. Republican or Democrat, doesn't matter. This is uncomfortable fact for people in Washington, but a fact nonetheless. So when Democrats in Washington media see that Pelosi raised $568 million for the Democratic Party in 2002, they see a superstar. Voters, on the other hand, see corruption. No one outside of Washington believes that people give $500 million to a politician and that politician doesn't deliver to their donors. And that is absolutely spot on. Do you know that 73% of a politician's time is spent on the phone with their donors? Think about that. If you spend that much time, you're not reading legislation. Oftentimes the legislation is written by think tanks and all of these other people, again, donors, companies, corporations, people who are giving them cash. 75%. One of the Republicans came out and was like, whoa, this is insane. I can't get anything done. I'm spending all of this time trying to, raise money. Who are you listening to? Who's in your ear if you're spending that much time? In the rest of the country, she's deeply unpopular. That, too, is a fact. A real clear political average of polls had her at 15% underwater and arguably less popular than Donald Trump. To be fair, people in Congress usually do worse than the president on an average. You should see Senator Mitch McConnell's rating, yes. However, it is fair to conclude that the country finds her less than masterful. There's a difference between being... fair enough. It's one thing to prove she's unpopular and that she takes a lot of money from the top donors in the country. It's another to show she's not a progressive champion. And here's the catch. Progressive has to do with policy. That's not an optics issue. That's not a debatable issue. It's what does the person support? I'm not completely on board for, if all of the lefties do X, then this by definition is a lefty. But fair enough. When you have all of these lefties on one side and this other person that's not on that side, it starts to look a little dicey, especially when it goes down and you tick one box after the next. Medicare for all, no. Green New Deal, no. In fact, PAYGO, no. Like, all lefties are not on board for any of these things. Pelosi is. He makes that point. It's one thing to prove she's unpopular and that she takes a lot of money from top donors in the country. It's another to show that she's not a progressive champion, right? For example, one of the first things Pelosi absolutely insisted in putting in the House of Rules was PAYGO. That's a rule that you can say that you must raise taxes or cut spending if you propose any legislation that adds to the deficit. Progressives despise that rule. That's about right, yes. It threatens to block every major progressive priority in Congress. Why would progressives fight for that rule? There's a very simple answer. They wouldn't. Let's keep going. Let's move down a little bit. Now let's get to the main event. Progressive priorities for the next 2 years. Would anyone doubt that progressive base clearly wants Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, college for all? Will Speaker Pelosi fight for any of these? No. In reality, she is very likely to fight against all of them. She disagrees with the progressive base, and that's why she is not a progressive. Essentially, you can go down the line on the items that lefties want to get accomplished. Nancy Pelosi is not on board for any of those items. How can you call yourself a progressive if you're not on board for the items that lefties are on board for? That's, it's a basic contradiction. How do you resolve that contradiction? Not a contradiction at all. She's just not a lefty. If it isn't clear enough, she further clarifies by repeating a Republican talking point on Medicare for all by asking, how are you going to pay for that? She then sent one of her top aides to assure the health insurance industry that she will be working against Medicare for all. Any chance Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez would have done that? Then she would on to say about the Green New Deal, the Green Dream, or whatever they call it. Nobody knows what it is, but everybody's for it, right? Mitch McConnell would have had trouble being so condescending to a progressive proposal. Now, to be fair, Nancy Pelosi is to some degree right. Nobody knows what it is because it's so diffuse. Like, it's not a very specific plan per se. This is what we want to get accomplished. But you can have a right-wing agenda, meaning giving money to a bunch of corporations, and still kind of fit under this agenda of a Green New Deal. It's not a hardcore thing of ideas per se. So fair enough. She's being a bit of a dick with that, but okay, fair enough. You're all right. She's being condescending. Finally, some can make the argument that she is secretly in favor of these proposals, but thinks she can't get them passed because of moderate Democrats. This is Speaker Pelosi's most common trick, playing to the most conservative denominator. She is proud of keeping her caucus together, but how does she do that? By browbeating progressives to back down, by saying that Democrats in purple districts must be protected, so everyone must vote for the version of the bill that's least offensive to conservative, corporate-friendly Democrats. She will not propose or fight for or pass any of the huge progressive priorities. In fact, she will work hard to block them. She's not a progressive, and she'll prove it over the next 2 years. I have said that there is a war in the Democratic Party. And I've said that because there has to be. There's a contradiction in the sense of the way things are going. You have some candidates, like Justice Democrats, that got in office with this notion of, we're going to reinsole the Democratic Party. Meaning, we are either going to get Democrats to back these agendas, or we're going to get these guys out of office. That was their express purpose. We're going to get these guys out of office. We're going to primary Democrats. Ocasio-Cortez said it herself. We're going to primary some folks. She didn't say it like that. I'm saying it that way, but you get my point. But you can't have it both ways. If you're saying that you're going to literally get people who are in your party out of office, well, what do those dinosaurs do? Those dinosaurs respond. Those dinosaurs say, well, wait a minute. Anybody that tries to assist in taking a dinosaur out of office is going to get sanctioned by the party. In which case, you put a chill on companies that typically work with candidates, helping those candidates. Now, Ocasio got so pissed off at that one, Rokana, that they were like, we're going to stop paying our dues. This is an outright conflict. Now, you don't necessarily see this expressed fully within the context of the Democratic primary, because anything that these guys say, if they're running negative ads, is going to be used by Trump the very next day. I guarantee you, the first negative thing that's tweeted is going to be tweeted by Donald Trump the very next day. both things can't be true. Just as Democrats and people like Ocasio-Cortez, who say they're going to get Medicare for all, college for all, and all these other proposals, they're not going to be able to get those passed with the Democrats that are currently in office. So what are you going to do? Are you lying to your base about it? Or are you going to work to get those guys out of office so you can get your priorities passed? Which one is it? Also, it was most offensive the not defending Ilhan Omar. Because not defending Ilhan Omar allowed the nonsense attacks on Tlaib. I think that's how you pronounce her name, Tlaib. Rashid Tlaib. Because at that point, it was open season. The Democratic Party had already attacked one of its own members. Republicans then fed into that, which allowed them to make that next baseless attack. In fact, that attack was so baseless, it was utterly absurd. But again, all of that was allowed because you allowed them to attack your first person. Shout out to Uygur on this video. I like this. I like this article. It was belligerent and defiant. I like it. And when one part is weird, he considers himself outside of that establishment. It's like, but dude, you're not outside of that established order. Even though you may consider yourself outside of it, you're still there. All right. Much love from Australia. Came here from the JD show. Oh, Jimmy Dore show. Your previous stream an hour or so ago only showed up now. Once you started this one, I got 2 notifications. No way. Dude, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for the support. It all helps. I mean, you guys help make the show, so. All right, I will end this here. I don't want to keep this one too long, and I may have another video coming up after this, so I'll see you guys in a few. If you guys enjoyed the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. And by the way, the Patron Appreciation episode is going to be at 1 p.m. tomorrow. The videos from Patron Appreciation previous episodes have been sliced up and put on Patreon, so all patrons have access. Even $1 helps. So, thanks all. I'll see you in a few.